When we think about communication, we often think about words, but some of the most powerful messages in history have been communicated without speaking at all. As I traveled through different cities, I began noticing something fascinating. Paintings, sculptures, cathedrals, and buildings were all telling me something, even though there was no written explanation. Some spaces inspired awe, while others created a sense of peace, power, wonder, or reflection. The message wasn't spoken, it was felt. This project explores how art and architecture communicate meaning without words. Through on-site observations, historical research, and personal reflection, I examine how artists and architects have used elements such as light, color, symbolism, scale, and design to shape human experience. Rather than asking what story is being told, I want to ask, what am I meant to feel? What am I seeing? What am I understanding? From Monet's paintings that capture emotion through color and atmosphere to grand cathedrals that inspire reverence through height and light, these works reveal how visual culture can teach, persuade, and connect us across cultures and centuries. Join me as we explore how art and architecture speak a universal language, one that doesn't need words to be understood. As I explored through the Borghese Gallery, I encountered two sculptures by Gian Lorenzo Bernini that perfectly demonstrate one of the central ideas of this project, that art can communicate powerful stories, emotions, and beliefs without using a single word. The first sculpture, the Rape of Persephone, captures the dramatic moment when Pluto, the god of the underworld, abducts Persephone. At first glance, what stands out is Bernini's incredible ability to make marble appear completely alive. The figures seem frozen in motion, yet their emotions feel immediate and real. Pluto's powerful grip symbolizes the forces of fate, death, and inevitability. In contrast, Persephone represents life, innocence, fertility, and spring. Her struggle and expression of fear communicates a sense of loss and separation that viewers can understand instinctively. At Pluto's feet sits Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld, reinforcing the boundary between life and death. But this sculpture is more than a dramatic mythological scene. It also serves as an allegory for the changing seasons. According to the myth, when Persephone is taken to the underworld, her mother, Ceres, mourns, causing winter to fall upon the earth. When Persephone returns, spring and summer follow. Through symbolism and emotion, Bernini transforms marble into visual explanation of nature's cycle of death and rebirth, bringing back Cerberus. What I found especially interesting is how this sculpture communicates through feeling. Even if someone knew nothing about the myth, they could still recognize the fear, power, and sorrow and loss simply by observing the figures. As I moved through the gallery, I noticed that Bernini explored many of these same ideas in other masterpieces, such as Apollo and Daphne. Like the Rape of Persephone, the sculpture captures a single moment filled with movement and emotion. Based on Ovid's Metamorphosis, it depicts the god Apollo pursuing the nymph Daphne. Desperate to escape him, Daphne calls upon her father for help and is transformed into a laurel tree. Bernini captures the exact moment of transformation. Apollo reaches forward, believing he's about to catch her, while Daphne's fingers become leaves and her hair turns into branches, and her feet starts rooting themselves into the earth. Once again, Bernini uses marble to communicate something deeply human. Apollo's expression conveying longing and desire, while Daphne's face reveals both fear and relief. The viewer can feel the attention of the moment without explanation. Some in the sculpture is equally powerful. Daphne represents purity, freedom, and the desire to control her own destiny. Apollo represents the pursuit of something beautiful, yet ultimately unattainable. The laurel tree that Daphne becomes later becomes sacred to Apollo and serves as a symbol of victory, honor, and remembrance. When viewed together, these two sculptures reveal Bernini's extraordinary ability to communicate complex ideas through visual storytelling. Both works explore themes of transformation, loss, desire, and the forces that shape human life, yet neither relies on words. Instead, they use movement, expression, symbolism, and composition to create meaning. Standing before these sculptures, I was reminded that art does not simply depict a story, it creates an experience. Centuries after they were carved, these works continue to invoke emotion and communicate ideas to viewers from different cultures, backgrounds, and they even serve as powerful examples of how art can transcend languages and speak directly to the human experience. Now, this was not a piece of art I originally expected to include in my project. However, as I explored the museum, these gravestones stood out to me because they perfectly demonstrate how art can communicate powerful messages without relying on the spoken language. These marble grave reliefs date back to 4th century BC, which were created to honor and remember those buried beneath them. Although they are funerary monuments, they do much more than mark a burial site. They tell stories about identity, relationships, social status, and the human experience of loss. The first gravestone is believed to commemorate a beautiful young woman named Anna Manelikia, the daughter of Ananda Demetrius, and was discovered in Piraeus. The relief depicts a standing woman, assumed to be Amanicalia, leaning gently on the head of a kneeling attendant who helps fasten her sandal. Behind them stands another woman looking at a chest that contains jewelry, presumably from a dead relative. What I found fascinating is that none of these details are necessary to identify the deceased, yet they were intentionally included. Through clothing, attendants, posture, and the personal possessions, the sculptor communicates Anamelikia's social standing and the importance of her role within her family and community. The figures are calm and graceful, creating a sense of dignity and honor. Even without reading any descriptions, the viewer can recognize that this was someone who was deeply valued and remembered. The second gravestone communicates a very different message. Found northeast of Athens in Psychiko, it commemorates a woman named Philon. In this relief, a young mother sits sorrowfully on a stool while another woman holds her infant child. The baby reaches towards its mother, creating a powerful emotional connection between the figures. Unlike the first monument, which emphasizes status and nobility, this relief focuses on love, family, and loss. The gestures of the figures tell the story. The mother's posture, the baby's outreached arms, and the distance between them communicates grief in a way that words cannot. Even more than 2,000 years later, viewers can immediately understand the sadness and tenderness represented in this scene. These gravestones support one of the central ideas in my project. Art does not need words to communicate meaning. Through composition, facial expression, body language, and symbolism, these ancient artists were able to preserve stories and emotions that continue to resonate with people even centuries later. They remind us that visual art has the power to connect us to lives, experiences, and feelings of others across vast distances of time and culture. Unfortunately, I experienced some technical difficulties with my phone while visiting the monastery of Hoisis Locus, and I lost most of the footage I originally captured. While I wish I could show more of this incredible site, the experience itself and the research I conducted afterwards still made it one of the most meaningful locations of this project. As I traveled through Greece, one of the most fascinating examples of architecture communicating without words was the monastery of Hoisis Locus. At first glance, it appears to be a beautiful Byzantine monastery nestled to the mountainside. But the more I learned about it, the more I realized that every aspect of its design was carefully planned to teach, inspire, and guide those who entered. Unlike many buildings today, the architecture of Hoisis Locus was not simply about appearance. Every element served as a practical and spiritual purpose. During the Byzantine era, churches were designed as a physical representation of the universe. The massive central dome above me was intended to symbolize heaven itself. Looking forward, worshippers could see images of Christ, Pantocrator, or the Christ of the ruler of all, gazing down from above. Through architecture alone, visitors were reminded of the relationship between heaven and earth. As I moved through the monastery, I noticed how the space seemed to direct my attention upward. The transition between square base of the church and the circular dome was accomplished through architectural features called squinches. These areas often contain scenes from Christ's earthly life, creating a visual bridge between humanity below and the divine realm above. What I found especially interesting was the contrast between the exterior and interior of the building. From the outside, the monastery appears relatively modest and reserved, but stepping inside reveals dazzling mosaics, golden surfaces, and overwhelming senses of beauty. The contrast was intentional. Byzantine architects wanted the building itself to reflect a spiritual journey. Humble on the outside, yet rich and transformative on the inside. The monastery also functioned as an important pilgrimage site. Hoisis Locus was famous for miraculous healings, and pilgrims traveled great distances hoping to be cured. To accommodate these visitors, architects built a massive crypt beneath the main church where people could pray and even sleep near the saint's tomb in hope of receiving healing. The design of the complex allowed both monks and pilgrims to use the space simultaneously without disrupting the other. Even the lighting played a role in communicating meaning. Before electricity, the church was illuminated by only candles and oil lamps. The gold mosaics were placed at slight angles so that the flickering candlelight would reflect across their surfaces, making the figures appear almost alive. During worship, visitors would have experienced a space that seemed to glow with divine light. What makes Oasis Locust such a powerful example for this project is that it demonstrates how architecture can teach and communicate without words. It brings that feeling. Throughout its layers, lighting, symbolism, and design, the monastery conveyed ideas about faith, heaven, healing, and spiritual transformation. Centuries later, it communicates those same messages to anyone who walks through its doors, proving that architecture can just be as powerful as a form of storytelling as any painting or sculpture. Another work that stood out to me during this project is The Dance Class by Edgar Degas, completed in 1874. At first glance, this painting does not feel like a traditional story painting. There's no clear central event or dramatic movement. Instead, Degas invites us into something quieter and more observational. A rehearsal piece at the Paris Opera where dancers are practicing under the guidance of their ballet master. What makes this piece so interesting is that Degas chooses not to focus on the performance, but on everything behind it. We see dancers stretching, adjusting their posture, resting, and waiting. Some appear attentive, while others seem distracted or tired. These are not idealized performers on stage, they are real people in the moment of practice and repetition. Rather than placing the most important action in the center, Degas uses an asymmetrical composition. The figures are spread across the space in a way that feels more natural and almost unplanned. One corner of the painting is left noticeably unopened, which makes the scene feel more like a fleeting snapshot than a carefully staged image. It gives the impression that we are not looking at performance, but momentarily stepping into a private rehearsal room. What I find especially powerful is how the painting communicates atmosphere instead of narrative. There's a sense of quiet discipline, repetition, and routine. You can almost feel the exhaustion and focus of the dancers, even without any sound or explanation. This connects directly to my project's central idea of meaning, and the art does not always come from a story being told. Instead, it can come from moment feelings. Degas captures the in-between spaces of performance, the waiting, the correcting, the imperfect moments that usually stay unseen. By doing this, he transforms a simple rehearsal into something that communicates discipline, pressure, and dedication through visual observation alone. Even without words, the painting gives us an understanding of what it is meant to be a part of this world. In the end, the dance class shows that sometimes art communicates most powerfully through dramatic events, not through quiet everyday moments that reveal emotion, structure, and human experience. Before concluding this project, I wanted to briefly highlight another important art form that demonstrates how visual images can communicate meaning without words. Greek black figure pottery. At first glance, these vessels may appear to be simple pottery, but they serve as a canvas for storytelling. Artists paint figures using black slip and then carefully incise details into the surface, revealing the red clay beneath. This technique allows them to create facial expressions, clothing folds, and anatomical details that brought their subjects to life. What makes the black figure pottery especially relevant to this project is its ability to preserve and communicate stories visually. Scenes often depicted Greek myths, legendary heroes, athletic competitions, battles, religious practices, and moments from everyday life. Long before modern books, films, or photography, these images helped share cultural values, beliefs, and traditions. Here's a montage of some honorary mentions. As this journey comes to an end, one thing has become clear. Art and architecture are far more than decoration. They are forms of communication that transcend language, culture, and time. Throughout these cities, I encountered works that did not rely on words to convey meaning. Instead, they used color, light, space, symbolism, and design to invoke emotions, express beliefs, and shape the way people experience the world around them. Whether standing beneath the soaring ceilings of a cathedral or observing the soft atmospheric strokes of a Monet painting, I discovered that meaning is often felt before it is understood. While these styles, cultures, and historical periods differed, many of these works explored the same universal themes: faith, identity, beauty, power, hope, and the human desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. This project has changed the way I look at the world, and it has taught me that every building, painting, public space has the potential to communicate something important if we take the time to observe and reflect. The next time you visit a museum, walk through a city, or stand inside a historical building, consider not just what you see, but what you feel. You may discover that art and architecture have been speaking to you all along. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of how art and architecture communicate without words.